Hello guys and welcome to our channel. This is WvW. In today's video I want to talk about the upcoming balance batch on 25 June. I wanted to make this video earlier, but due to IRL stuff I couldn't, so here it is, but I want to make it a little bit different. So I want to talk about why Arena is making those changes, not only what are the changes. And we will also be discussing what it will affect our build, our choices for weapon and stuff. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. So for Ranger, they say they want to tune up some underutilized skills, and they improve Shortbow, Longbow, and Juvenile Aether Hunter, the new bit that came from Soto, the first one, and some adjustment to survival defensive skill, one could say, with other changes that we will get right into. So for a start, Shortbow got 3 skills changed. Poison Volley skill 2 will change only in World vs. World and PvP, with a reduction to cooldown from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. And the same thing will happen to Concussion Shot, will get a cooldown reduction from 25 to 20, but that's in every game mode, not only in competitive. And skill 4, the Bleeding Inflicted Bite now will be using the condition damage and duration, the attributes from Ranger, not the bit. So with the reduction to cooldown, pay attention that has nothing to do with light on your feet. If we remove this trait, you can see that it have 8 seconds as they say, but if we put it, now it's 6 seconds and a half, and that means you can still lower the cooldown even further. It will be about 4 seconds, 3/4 or 5 seconds, and again the same thing for the 5th skill, the Concussion Shot, which means it will be as low as 16 second CC, which is very good. Now skill 4 was something that annoyed me since I mained Ranger, because any skill that will make or give an effect to the bit that the bit will end up doing this, it will use the traits of the bit itself, the attributes from it. So it gives you basically the wrong look. Since this is your skill on your own weapon, it calculates based on your own attributes, so your own condition damage, your own condition duration, but it will put this effect on the bit. Once you hit it, even without target, you will have this, and the bit next 3 attacks will inflict bleeding, but will use its own attribute with only 1000 condition damage and no condition duration, and other bits like Turtle for example even lower. So a skill like this became extremely useless. You basically apply cripple and that's it, even very low power damage. Insignificant, since the entire weapon itself doesn't scale very well with power to begin with. And if you are flanking like in a normal mob in PvE, something like that, I will end up not doing anything. Obviously that's an underwater mob, but you get my point. Just a cripple, there's no power damage, there's no condition damage, a very minor bleed that's worthless from my bit, that if my bit is alive or not blinded even, that can apply it. And that's a skill 4 on the weapon, it needs more love obviously. And the same thing with skill 2 on the dagger that introduced with Burst of Fire, Soulbeast, and now can be used with anything, like even with Droid, like I am here. The poison effect again is an effect on your bit that will give its next 2 attacks will apply poison. But again the poison appear with your own stats, but it doesn't apply with your own stats, it's applied with the bit. So I hope for consistency the dagger also get changed to apply the poison through my stats, not the bit. Now why buffing Shortbow? This is a consistent change, this is something that wrong, that needed to be fixed, because the skill was almost useless. Even in competitive it's only cripple, that's why you would find me in my roaming videos spamming it a lot. Sometimes I save it, or if I have it, to flank an enemy and apply more immobilize and really logs them down, but most of the time I use it for the cripple and the extra pressure. It's just there, like a more cover condition. So instead of you having like bleeding, immobilize and poison, you would have also cripple that will make you struggle a bit for cleansing even faster. But now it will at least have some decent damage tied to it, as it should. But why you actually buff this Shortbow? Because Shortbow, in my opinion, is the most consistent weapon in the Ranger arsenal and the lowest spike possible. If you play Power Ranger, you have your damage coming from your weapon. You have multiple modifiers here. You give yourself boon, you use second Soulbeast, you use one wolf back, but one wolf back technically not a modifier, it's actually damage, but you get the point. Your traits giving you modifiers. Extra 10% if your health is that, stuff, extra stats, stuff like that. And the damage comes from the weapon and from skills tied here. Even on Soulbeast you merge with the bit and use the bit skills. For Untamed you use your own skills. There is not much utility for it. Obviously there is, Like this trap, years ago it became a power damage. If you run an Untamed, you have the spores, for example. So there is some, but it's not the main thing. For condition ranger in general, most of your damage come from utility skills and from the traits. It doesn't come directly from the weapon as much. So when the weapon itself lack, you actually will choose another one. So for my Untamed, for example, I run Dagger and Torch, and I run Dagger and Warhorn, and I run Axe and Torch. And it really depends on what build you are running. Like for Druid, for PvE, I run Shortbow, because skill 4 and 5, both of them can trigger a trait which is Blood Moon, meaning my traits will add damage to it, not the weapon itself. That's why I'm focusing on it. Most of the time, if you're running something like Sharpened Stone, if you're running Glyph like that, you will still be able to apply all this damage. All the skills from the Celestial Avatar will still apply the same damage. You don't need Shortbow for it. So you can simply remove Shortbow and use another weapon that have better damage, better spike, better burst to it. And you don't have to run something light on your feet. You can run something like Vicious Quarry. You can run Quick Draw for double skills, which what make Shortbow really fall out of favor. Even for competitive. Like I said, it's a consistent weapon, meaning you can hit 1, 1, 1, 1 repeatedly, and the damage will become annoying enough. You would have to remove it, or cleanse it, or defend against it. But this skill is a fin that's spread in front of you. It could miss if you're not in melee. You could actually end up with not a single poison on your target. And the other skills are not really meant for damage. They're very efficient with Druid because of the traits, but other classes are not. But it's consistent as a delivery method for condition Soulbeast, like the skills when you merge with Bristleback, stuff like that. But even on consistency, you have something like Engineer Pistol having higher damage on the auto attack, so it can offer the same level. Short Bow for Renegade, for example, or Revenant in general, makes this weapon is a joke compared to it. Like, the difference is insane between the two weapons. So will those buffs actually change how this weapon work? Will we all now Ranger go with Short Bow? Of course not. They are very minor. They are a reduction to the cooldown of skill 2, so it becomes more consistent. So not only bleed, you will always have poison, you're not afraid to lose it, or you always have to go into melee. A couple of stacks and a couple of stacks, it doesn't matter, you will be inclined to use it more. And a little bit extra damage from this skill, and accessibility, like you're able to access your skills more and more, so the weapon become more valuable. At least it have a decent CC on a condition setup more than other weapons, for example. And the same thing happen with Longbow. So Longbow, the changes are mainly for PvE, it's not everywhere else. So for the auto attack, they increase the power damage coefficient, and the same thing happen for rapid fire. The reason behind this is Longbow is not really usable for PvE. It's very low damage. This skill is very weak, and it gives you stealth and swiftness to your bit. This is only a CC and not great damage. Again, you have this cleave that's very good in melee range or in distance, depending on where your enemy stand. You can use it, but you only have those two skills, and they lack way comparing to other weapons like axe, like melee ranger, like hammer, greatsword, maces. And you know that Power Ranger A is quite in favor right now until it's got nerfs or competitive or whatsoever. And even for PvE, its weapons are very strong, but the Longbow lack a lot behind. And even if you run it with something like Untamed, you get to have the reduction to your cooldown, which is quite decent. So if you are wanting to play the lazy mode and use Longbow and keep spamming your skills, it can be very good. At least now you would have an extra damage tied to the main sources of damage, which is those two skills. And another change is this trait, Lead the Wind. So it used to work that if you hit an enemy from a distance that greater than 1200 range, you will gain quickness and swiftness. And it's also buff the Longbow in general, the reduction to charging time to the skills, makes your skill pierce, stuff like that. Now it will be the quickness tied actually to point blank shot. So will that convince people in competitive, for example, to run marksmanship? I'm not sure, it really depends on the build, but at least now you don't have to go with something like Celerity Sigil to trigger the quickness on CC, because the stable combo is you simply hit point blank shot and go with rapid fire while the enemy is CC'd, so you would actually get the most of the damage while the CC is happening in a quickness window it work efficiently. So people would go something like Celerity, would use something like Quickening Zephyr. There's multiple tools, but they use quickness for that, or prep it in order to apply it with rapid fire. But this trait doesn't work only with longbow, it works with harpoon gun. So what will it work now with? In harpoon gun, you don't have point blank shot. Will it work with skill 4 in harpoon gun? I'm not sure, especially if you missed the news. The next expansion will have underwater weapon on land. So it showed us spear that moved between water and land already. So I assume most of the weapon, if not all of them, maybe that's a new thing for the expansion. But if we have the harpoon gun, we need it to apply. So maybe it will work with skill 4, but I hope they didn't simply ignore it while the next expansion focused on water. That would be very weird. And as you can see here, the moment I get in range, I get the quickness and swiftness. Like I said, it work on harpoon gun too. Now for survivability changes, this is change that came with many classes, not only ranger, which is lowering the cooldown for skills that will allow you for more survival or defense position, mostly stun breaks. So for us ranger, Signet of Renewal reduced cooldown from 35 to 20, and that's all PvE, by the way. From 35 to 20, Signet of Stone from 80 to 30, but the duration got reduced from 6 to 4. Quickening Zephyr from 35 to 20, which is great since I already use it with my Untamed. Lightning Reflexes from 24 to 20, and again with Soulbeast, Doliac Stance reduced cooldown from 30 to 25, and Mutate Condition for Untamed from 30 to 20, and I use it with my Power Untamed version. So that is very good, but simply it's a power creep through defense, not only through offense, as we used to get more damage, more boons, and stuff that Aranit kept giving us. This has probably require a video on its own, talking about the different changes across the year and what this brought us now in the game and why Aranit do this. So that's not the topic for this video, but basically that's it. They increasing our ability to survive. But why that? I assume that most builds in open world especially used to be either like 2 stun breaks or no stun breaks. Most people at least think this way. Even I used to use 2 stun breaks normally and then reduced it to 1 stun break the more powerful my class became, especially since the introduction of Untamed. Untamed I used it with only 1 stun break and became the normal for every build I create after that, or the standard idea. To add more damage, you avoid the survivability skill and add a skill that actually will increase your DPS. Because survivability skills have really great cooldowns and they are not worth taking for most player. Like this, for example, used to be 80 seconds. That's insane. Some skills for 40 seconds, 50 seconds, that's a lot. While skill for damage, like Sharpened Stone, for example, is 30. That's even after the nerf. So people would go with complete damage and consider the stun break is not worth it and say that PvE or open world is easy, other people will revive you, so they ignore the defense. Or would go with 2, like I used to do for years before End of Dragon, just to have this cushion of survivability and you already have other sources of damage. So this, the low cooldown will be to convince people to run at least 1 stun break, to have as much DPS, but it is usable to at least have 1. So for example, running something like Quickening Zephyr for any ranger build will be a source of quickness to add to your damage if you need it, but also can be a condition cleanse if you're a condition player with a survival trait, or at least a stun break on a 20-second cooldown only. So I guess that is the notion behind this change. Now, Strength Source Back got increased the might duration from 6 seconds to 10 in World vs. World and PvP, and I think that's a welcome change. The might gained through the hits, so when your bit hit an enemy, it gives you might. When you hit an enemy, you give your bit might. And 6 seconds only on your elite skill is just really bad. It's not even you get it and you immediately unload your damage. Like some skills, like the elite skill for Harbinger, for example, no. Your hits giving you the might across time. So you need some duration to this to make it valuable as a choice. At least to compete with other skills. If you play Soulbeast, you will take 1 wolf back. If you play a druid, you would take Entangle, you would take Glyph of the Stars. If you play Untamed, you take Force Fortification for the damage reduction, the super speed. This skill had no use. Most people will not take it. So will that actually make it again or a better choice? I would say no. The might is very tricky to get, so it's simply a weaker version of Force Fortification for Untamed in my opinion. Maybe the consistent cooldown is tempting, but no. For Druid, at least for Condition Druid, no. And even if you want the stability, the Glyph of the Stars, no. So this is actually doesn't really put it in a favor yet. but it's a welcome change, I would say. Now, Spirit of Nature got its cooldown reduced in PvE from 120 seconds to 90 seconds, which is good only for something like healing Untamed, because now you would have a revival skill comparing to Druid having Glyph of the Stars, but for Druid itself, Glyph of the Stars is still lower cooldown and still better skill in my opinion. A buff is a buff, but it is good for Untamed healer and not many other builds in my opinion. Juvenile Aether Hunter. This bit was the first to come with Soto, and I made a video reviewing the latest one and also talked about the other bits, and I said this to be considered the lowest one in my tier, or not the greatest. It's an all-around good bit with good damage, a bit tanky, some condition, some cleave, CC, but it's very sluggish, very slow, and unreliable. I didn't feel it work well, and we will see Arenanet adjusting all that. So they increase the hitbox for skill lunge and lower the cripple duration for 3 seconds instead of 8. It still does a cripple, but at least now it will not miss as it used to, or as much as it used to. Dimensional Breach reduced the aftercast by 1 second. Now you see what I'm talking about when I said it's sluggish. 1 second aftercast, this is very slow. The bit would move in between skills like it take a nap in the middle. Leyline Vortex increased the power coefficient from 0.3 to 0.5 in PvE only, and for Soulbeast skill, Lunge reduced bar coefficient from 1.2 to 1, and Leyline Vortex, they increase the amount of hits from 4 to 8, but reduce the torment from 2 to 1, so it would apply the same amount, and reduce the bar coefficient from 0.6 to 0.35, but again more hits, so I think it's a little bit of a buff. Soulbeast Prelude Lash got its damage reduced from 0.4 to 0.01. So basically, like any CC skills, it no longer have damage. Arenanet have doubled back on the idea of every CC skill doesn't have damage. So some skill would be more free for design and more valuable, since this will really take away some of its value. And I think that's okay. But I don't think the normal rule should be that we bring any kind of DPS or damage in general to a CC skill. So I think I'm okay with something like that. Besides, Prelude Lash used to be with Soulbeast, they set up a burst with it. They simply ball you and use Maul, use X5, something like that. And that was one of the best batches that came to the game in my opinion, the removal of CC, the removal of damage on CC. Because you used to be needing to dodge the CC, dodge the burst. Like, we have 2 dodges. How many defenses can I put in order to survive, especially in outnumber fights or something like that? So it became a very good thing and more good for the gameplay of the entire game, in my opinion, in competitive modes. So you set up your burst, you know when to control, when to damage, you know what to choose in your build. It became more valuable to simply slot all the CC you can and that's it, and call it a day, which what used to happen before this patch. Tailswipe fixed the bugs that made it not affected by quickness. Wing buffed fixed the bugs that give 1 second global cooldown to Soulbeast somehow. And we also said that Dual Stance got it cooldown reduced in PvE, again always mutate condition, the same thing for Untamed. Unleash bit got its visual effect to fade away the same way it worked on the player, it will now work on the bit, it will fade away, it's no longer a green blob that follow you around, you will actually see your bit again. And for Toxic Shot, the short bow unleash ambush skill, they increased its velocity by 33% and will now apply the weakness with no condition. It used to be if the enemy had poison, it will apply weakness. If it doesn't, it will only apply its poison and torment. Now it will apply torment, poison, and weakness every time, consistently, no condition required. And they increase the poison and torment duration from 5 to 6 seconds. So this used to be the skill, as you can see, it's very slow. It used to be, it will be faster than this now. And it have acceptable damage, but again, it will not make short bow as the choice to go to for Untamed, because like for my build, for example, I need my healing power, I need my boon duration, I need to be hybrid, since every other weapon will be hybrid, like my axe, like my dagger. I'm able to use melee and ranged skill here, so short bow would have to remove the axe or remove the dagger, so now you're stuck in ranged skill, so projectile defenses will stab you. With short bow you need to go light on your feet to increase its efficiency and make it pierce, which means you let go of vicious quarry, so I don't think this will change anything or make it a better option than running with dagger and axe in my opinion, but obviously I will test it once the patch is actually live. So that's it for the video. Tell me what you think in the comment, ask any question or leave your own notes and I will be reading them all. That's it for the video and I will see you next time. Peace.